Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. It's College Football Wraparound, and I am so glad to be back and doing some videos. I know it's been a couple weeks since I've done anything, but tonight we've got a special guest, Deric Sanford. He is back. If you remember from the channel, he's helped me out quite a bit in the past, and so, Deric, how are you?
Doing pretty good, Cooper. Been keeping up with Auburn football and Auburn basketball a bunch. I've been hoping Auburn basketball would have made it further into the final in the championship, but all good and well.
Yeah, I'll say this: watching their championship run. I mean, both times that they've gotten to the Final Four, they got there, they lost close games. Who knows? Maybe the next time they make it, maybe that's the lucky third time making it to the Final Four, and maybe that's the time that they end up winning it all. Who knows?
Yeah, never know. We had a good lineup, but the Auburn team got a little fatigue, injuries and stuff towards the end of the season, and Florida was just really on a hot streak on it.
All right. Well, today, if you didn't see the thumbnail, folks, or if you didn't pay attention, we are talking about Auburn, and then we're going to get into some Alabama as well, and we got some questions to throw in there as well, as far as some trivia questions that Deric came up with. So, Deric, overall, let's start out first. What was your total assessment of last year? Because I know you didn't come on to do like a recap of the whole season. So here's like a good chance to look at last year. What did you think about Auburn? And do you think that Hugh Freeze did a good job last year? What's your total assessment?
Well, last year Auburn had a tough season. We Auburn had the chance, so many chances in every game. Like Auburn went, and they went 5-7 last year. We could have, in case you look back at most of the games, we look back at Cal, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Georgia, kind of. We all blew it. Kind of Georgia, we weren't as close, but those other three games, we were real close, and we threw one less interception. Maybe we might be able to come out with a win at every one of those games. So Auburn was just super close to winning those games, but just could not finish them. But I think Hugh Freeze has rebuilt the quarterback room after last year, and really good with Jackson Arnold coming in.
Yeah, that was one of my main takeaways from last season for Auburn football is the quarterback situation was not ideal. And I felt like the flip-flopping between Peyton Thorne and the other guys that you had, it just didn't work well. And like you said, there's a lot of games Auburn had a shot at there and they just blew it. Now, I will say the one game that they really, I mean, they played a full game, they played really good, was that Texas A&M game. That was a incredible, I mean, I got to say this. It was an incredible football game to watch. And I will admit, I stayed up and I watched that till the very end. It was so much fun to watch that football game. One of the best games, maybe the best game to watch all last season.
Yeah, for Auburn, that was Auburn's highlight of the season. Auburn came out strong in the first quarter, stayed strong in the second quarter. Third quarter, they started letting Texas A&M come back. I was hoping we would just blow them out of the water and never get to overtime. But I think it was a great game because not only did Auburn like Auburn was good, played their best football in that game, but also Auburn's kicking game was terrible last year, and we brought in that what Jackson. It was some team's kicker that had never played before, pretty much at Auburn, and he came in and made two huge field goals. Which, if we put any of the other kickers in, no telling what would happen with how bad our kicker situation was last year. But this year, we're coming back with Alex McPherson, or I believe that's yeah, and come back with him, and he's back and healthy. So maybe we can have a better kicking game this year.
All right, so that's pretty much all the information as far as last season. You know, for Auburn, 5-7, not ideal. Kind of regressed when you look at it because they did make a bowl game the previous year before that. So now we look at this upcoming year. And to begin with, I want to get your thoughts because Hugh Freeze this week at Media Days, of course, Media Days is a great way to get a bunch of sound bites and a lot of talking points for the media. And Hugh Freeze definitely delivered on that by saying that a team, last season they were 5-7. This year he's looking at it and he's like, we are going to be in the playoff. I want your thoughts. Do you think Auburn has a chance to get to the playoff this season?
Yes, I believe Auburn does have a chance. It might not be as high of a chance as Alabama does, but I think it all depends on the first game. Going to Baylor on a Friday night, starting the game at 7 o'clock, it's going to be the defining game of the season. If Auburn comes out with a win, and a big win, if we get a double-digit win, no telling how Auburn's season will go. But if we come out with a 3-point win, we'll be decent. But if we go and lose, I'm worried about how the season will go. But I'm just wondering how the turnover game will go. And if we can capitalize on that, we'll be pretty good.
I agree. I think, and let me start off by saying this. I don't know of a better Labor Day weekend that starts on that Thursday and goes all the way that Monday. I don't remember a whole entire weekend of like stacked with good football games like it's going to be. This is one of the better ones I've seen in a long time. Because you got Baylor and Auburn on Friday night. You got Saturday stacked with football games. I think Notre Dame and Miami, I think they're the ones that play on that Sunday night. And then on Labor Days, like South Carolina, I think, playing against like Virginia Tech, maybe. I can't remember North Carolina, I think, takes on like TCU or someone. Either way, back to the point though. Auburn, I do agree that Baylor game is a huge defining moment because, and if you look at the past few coaches after Malzahn, Hugh Freeze actually has a worse record in this span of time. I think Brian Harsin actually had a better record than Hugh Freeze. So it's indicative of Hugh Freeze and this coaching staff to get a really good game plan going in to Baylor. And then they got it, like you said, turnover game. They got to clean up the game. They got to clean it up. And I am a strong believer that I think that Jackson Arnold I think he will improve immensely. And here's my thing. Brent Venables, I think, is a good coach, but he's not an offensive guy. Hugh Freeze, on the other hand, I think he's more of an offensive coach. So I think that plays to the advantage of Jackson Arnold coming into Auburn. And quite frankly, this is a guy coming out of high school that was a really superb quarterback. He was supposed to be the best quarterback coming out of high school, from what I believe, from what I've read. So I think Auburn, it's going to be turnover battle and quarterback play to begin the season against Baylor.
Yeah, like you said, and also Auburn's defense last year showed great. Auburn's defense was great last year. So if we can clean up the offensive game, I think Auburn could end with being ranked in the top 20 at least at the end of the year.
I agree. I think that when you look back at Auburn last season too, you can have a good defense, but if your offense cannot move the football, then there is going to be a breaking point. I think Alabama saw a lot of that too last year, where when your offense isn't helping your defense out, that defense will just bend after a while because if they're on the football field the majority of the football game, your defense is going to get tired. So for Auburn, I think it is really important to whenever you get on the football field, take long sustained drives offensively and keep the offense out there. Let your defense rest and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, and I just saw this another game. We have been talking a whole bunch about the Texas A&M game, and it was a great game and everything. But I think the Kentucky game was also a big defining moment for Auburn because Auburn was in a tough environment in Kentucky, and Darquez Hunter, oh man, he almost hit 300 yards, I think, if not hit it. So also Auburn's running game will be another key factor with him no longer there, and it being Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb, and Alvin Harrison being the running backs this year.
I was gonna look up something because I saw it earlier. Um, I gotta see it. One of Auburn's receivers. I think he's.
Malcolm
Don't know if he's like a
Simmons.
freshman. Yeah, Malcolm Simmons was arrested on domestic assault charges. Um, Now I'm not sure. I'm guessing he was he one of the main rotation guys last season.
He was in the rotation, but he was not the biggest player. And I think, was going to get more played this year than he was last year but he was not going to be the main guy. It stinks for him and everything, but he should know better. And I'm guessing he will get suspended from the team and will not be on the team after everything's done. And if he does make it to the team, he will have to rebuild everybody's confidence in him. So he probably will not get a whole bunch of playing time, if at all, any this year.
That's what I was thinking. I saw that, and I was trying to look it up and just see where he was, but hopefully, if you look at it from Auburn's side, it's a loss. It's a bad loss. It's his fault for doing that. But then you also got he's not the top receiver, so at least it's not a guy like Cam Coleman who's like the top receiver Auburn's got. Um, and I want to bring something back because you mentioned it a second ago, the run game. What do you think we can expect from Auburn's run game this season with the loss of Jarquez Hunter? Because he was a really good running back, and it's going to be hard to replace that. So, what do you think?
Yeah, Darquez Hunter, let me just say this. He was probably one of Auburn's most underrated running backs since Tank Bigsby has left. Everybody, when Tank Bigsby was there, everybody's like, oh, Tank's, he's great. But Jarquez was always the behind man to him. But Jarquez was a great player, and it's going to be hard to replace him. But I think if I haven't seen, never saw much of Austin or Jeremiah Cobb last year, and we haven't seen anything from Alvin Henderson. But I think we'll be decent on it. It will take some time getting used to, but. And Austin, he's got what I've noticed from last year, he's got to work on handling the ball because almost every game that he got the ball, at least one of the carries he fumbled. So he's got to work on that. And Jeremiah Cobb did not see much at all from him last year. So I don't want to say anything about him. Alvin Henderson, I just remembering seeing from he scored like 8 touchdowns in one game in high school, and I'm not comparing high school to college, but I think Alvin Henderson can be another next Jarquez Hunter if he can uh, if after I see a little bit from him, he could be a next great Auburn running back.
And, speaking on the run game, something that comes to mind for a second, Jackson Arnold, bringing him back up. He's a very athletic guy. He can run the football himself. So I think Hugh Freeze actually may have just got a great situation because although you lost Jarquez Hunter, you just went out and got a quarterback who could really complement that run game. You could do a lot of like quarterback design runs and help your run game out a little bit more and keep the defense guessing. So I think that's going to be big for the run game. And so I'm interested. I'm very interested in Auburn this season. Um, what is so? Any final thoughts on Auburn before we move on?
Well, to wrap everything up, pretty much like Auburn's wide receiver corps is a great wide receiver corps this year. We got Cam Coleman and we got Eric Singleton Jr. coming in from Georgia Tech. I think Auburn's wide receiver group is there this year. I'm not saying Keandre Lambert Smith was the a terrible wide receiver, but I think Eric Singleton can be a great attribute to um, uh, Jackson Arnold coming in. And also, if Jackson Arnold doesn't work out, we got after Baylor, we got South Alabama, and who I forgot who next, but we have two games to really define the starting quarterback if he doesn't work out because we got Deuce Knight, which I'm really high on him. I think he can be a next Auburn great quarterback too if he waits for his time like Ty Simpson has for Alabama. He's been at Alabama for 3 or 4, almost his whole career, and haven't gotten much to play for. But this year, he's getting the starting roles to define it. So I think Deuce Knight can do something like Ty Simpson if. Because Jackson Arnold most likely is going to go to the NFL draft after this year. So I think Deuce Knight could be in the starting role next year. So we don't know, but I think Auburn can be a legit team this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think Auburn, at the end of the day, if I'm going to make a bold prediction on Auburn, which I feel like the least bit of the bold prediction is that they're going to make a ball game. I think they're much better this year. I think they will be much better this year than what they were last year. I think, and this is just me, I think Auburn has the potential to be on the cusp of a 10-2, 9-3 season potentially if all things go right for Auburn this season. That's where I think they could be. Getting there is going to be the question because the SEC, although I would say the previous 2 years, the SEC's kind of been a little down comparatively. This upcoming season, I think you're going to see the best version of the Southeastern Conference that we've seen in a long time. I think it's by and far the best conference that we're going to see this season. So, let's go ahead and move on to the questions you had provided, and of course, with this being pre-recorded, we'll just have to basically give you the answers after a few seconds. But what we'll do is we'll say the question, we'll wait about 5 seconds, so you can pause the video and try to guess, and then we'll give the answer. So I got the questions pulled up. So the first question is, when was the SEC founded? All right. If you resume the video, the answer is 1933. Deric, what is your thoughts on how old the conference is and how close to 100 years?
Well, I thought to me it's weird not having the Southeastern Conference because it's one of the most defining conferences ever in the sports in football. And there's another question coming up that will define how much of an impact it has put on the SEC on football. So we'll see.
All right. So our next question is, who was the only SEC team to have 100 penalties in 2011? And the answer to that is the Florida Gators. So, Deric, what's your thought on that Florida team in 2011?
I was only 2 years old at that point, so I can't say much. But now you rarely see a team go without 100 penalties. I feel like in this nowadays because uh, refs are trigger happy sometimes, and not saying that we've become weaker, but uh, targeting has come out of control. So I feel like they need to redefine targeting a little bit because used to any like if you what's nowadays called targeting it used to be a a good hit. So they need to fix the targeting stuff. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I would agree. Getting on that, if I were the commissioner right now of college football, if there was a college football commissioner, here's what I define it as. Any hit that the player is defenseless and the defensive player, or it could be offensive player, depending on the penalty, if they take their helmet and hit the other guy in the face mask or in the helmet, anywhere in above the neck, then that's targeting. Now, I saw a bunch of calls last year where the guy would use the crown of their helmet and lead into the guy's shoulder. That's not targeting, because what I'm looking at targeting is like what could be a catastrophic neck injury or head injury. That's what I'm looking at targeting as. So if it's not above the neck, then it's not targeting, in my opinion.
Yeah, targeting, like I said, was out of control, and like you said, anything above the neck, it should be targeting if they lead with the crown of the helmet. Some of the parts of it is good. I'm not saying targeting is a terrible call, but it could be redefined because, like you said, refs and sometimes call head crown of the helmet to the shoulder that might ricochet off the shoulder towards the head as a targeting, even though he was leaning in for the shoulder or the offensive player accident started leaning in towards the helmet instead of trying to go away. So nowadays we are trying to get all that we can from penalties. Like you see, the unnecessary roughness is where people just flop to the ground. So it's all getting out of hand a little bit.
Yep. All right, let's move on. We got a couple more questions on here. I believe we got three more. So in 1939, which SEC team went undefeated, untied, and unscored on? And the answer to that would be Tennessee. So the thought of a team being that dominant is quite impressive.
Yeah, and nowadays that will never happen. I did not say this on the question or anything because I didn't realize it after I had come up with it. But Tennessee did end up losing a game, and I believe it was to USC in the national championship game or something like that. But they did end up losing one. But this will never happen ever again. there will never be a scoreless. There will be games where Tennessee or any team will make it where a team doesn't score any points, but there will never be a day again where a team goes a full regular season without somebody scoring a single point.
Yeah. All right. Got two more. How many SEC teams won the national championship in the 1990s? The answer to that is 3 teams. And I got to say this. The 90s were completely different than today when you look at college football because the SEC dominates. And I think since like 2005, they've won like the majority of the national championships come from the SEC.
Yeah, this is the question I was talking about earlier that really defines the SEC. That back in 1990s, it's like you said, a whole different game because like now, if like in 1990s, the hits were 2 times as hard, less flags and everything. So all the 19, I think one of them at least is Alabama, maybe Florida and Tennessee. I believe are the three, but I
I
know
think that's
Alabama.
right.
But I think Alabama and Florida are definitely on that list. So I'm just saying that the SEC has been dominant over the few centuries, the almost 100 years. So congrats to the SEC.
Yep. All right. Got one more question, and I feel like you threw this in here just because I'm a Packers fan of the NFL. So, which team drafted former Auburn players Colby Wooden and Anders Carlson? And I kind of gave that one away by saying the Packers. So, oops, sorry about that one.
Yeah, let me just say this. I did not know you're a Packers fan, really. So it's just a coincidence. I have this Auburn calendar that gives me a question every day or a fact. So while I was on my summer camp, I got this question from the calendar, and I asked all my Auburn friends in the room, and one of them said the Raiders, thinking it was Daniels Carlson instead of Anders. So we have good fun about it and stuff. So I'm glad that I contributed to your Packers fan.
All right. So, now that we're getting towards the end, let's talk shortly about Alabama because you can't have a video about Auburn without talking a little bit about Alabama as well. You just have to because it just where we live in the state of Alabama. You have to talk about both. So, of course, Alabama last year, and I want to see what you think. What did you think about Alabama last season?
They were not the same team at all. In the last few years, Alabama has not been the same team, but there was very less discipline, I feel like. And Alabama did not have a great quarterback, but they did not finish games like they were supposed to, like losing to Tennessee and Vanderbilt especially. But Diego Pavia, he's a great player, but Alabama was not a good team, a really good team last year. And I am not offended by Alabama not making it into the college football playoff last year with the play that they were. And y'all know I'm Auburn fan, probably. And if you don't, I am, and I'm a big Auburn fan. So, Bama, I'm not surprised. I would rather a smaller team like SMU make it in where they might not make it back for another 10, 20 years or something. So I just wanted and with the 12 team playoff, it's Alabama will make it more often than SMU will ever. So SMU was I think a good choice, but just because Alabama did not finish over the 10 double digit mark. If Alabama got that 10 wins, I think they were easily in the college football playoff.
I'll say this from last year, and I followed Alabama a bunch last year. I gotta say this. I agree about the whole thing with not finishing games. I feel like a lot of it came down to just inconsistent play because one game it seemed like Alabama's offense was looking good. I mean, let's go back to the Georgia game. First half against Georgia was by far the best half of football Alabama played the entire season. And both units were on point. Second half was a little different. Offense kind of slowed down, defense kind of slowed down. Bama came out with the win, but that's also contributed to the fact that Georgia wasn't the same team either. Like, they were not an incredible football team last year, if we're going to be honest. So Alabama had a lot of inconsistent play, but the majority of it came from the offense where it was inconsistent. Although you had a bunch of really good skill players, it came down to Bama could not make the plays, and that contributed to Jalen Milroe and his inability to get the ball where it needed to go. And penalties were ridiculous for Alabama last season. It was, me and my family went to the South Florida game, and it was painful to see a team like Alabama play as rough as they did in that football game. So I think when all is said and done for that last season for Alabama, I think that it was, you go look at the history books, for a first-year head coach, that's one of the best seasons Alabama has. Because Kalen DeBoer, from what I understand, he won the most games of a first-year head coach at Alabama. But the thing is, when you look at the standard that's been set at Alabama, last year was a disappointment for the talent they had and for the standard of winning. This was not the same Alabama team. So, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, just bringing this up, but I feel like South Alabama is to Alabama the same as Auburn and Cal. Auburn will never want to play against Cal again. So, like Alabama doesn't want to have another mistake like South Florida they did. But I feel bad for the Seahawks for getting Jalen Milroe, but but quit laughing. Yeah, it was Alabama's not the same team, and I feel like if that game of Georgia was at Georgia, I feel like it could have went the exact same way. And that game kind of gives the same feel to me as it in the Auburn Texas A&M game because Alabama went up 28-0. Auburn went up 28-0. The only difference is Auburn's went into overtime, 2 or 3 overtimes, and Alabama's didn't go into overtime. So those 2 games were probably 2 of the biggest games for the SEC all year. So and with Alabama coming up and playing Georgia this year, it will be interesting seeing how that plays out with both teams having new quarterbacks.
I got to say this. Moving on to this season, for Alabama, I think that second year for DeBoer, Bama is going to be better. I don't think there's any... I don't know who would disagree with me on that because I feel like Alabama, I feel like the offensive line's gotten better. I feel like the skill players are just getting even better for Alabama. They recruit at a high level. They get players through the transfer portal at a high level for Alabama. So I think that this season, when you look at Alabama football, it's going to come down to Ty Simpson, in my opinion, because we haven't seen a whole lot of him. And quite frankly, this is me personally, I would have loved to see Ty Simpson get a chance to actually start a football game last year because Jalen Milroe was so inconsistent. But what it's done is it's given Ty Simpson more time to sit, learn from the mistakes that Milroe made last year, and hopefully he's going to be better. Now, he doesn't have to be like, he doesn't have to be Bryce Young. He doesn't have to be Tua Tagovailoa. He doesn't have to be those guys. He's got to be a quality quarterback. I would say if he could be like a Mac Jones who can sit in the pocket, make the right play at the right time. And even if he needs to get out of the pocket and run with the football himself, he needs to be that guy for Alabama this season. He doesn't have to be Superman, but he's just got to make serviceable plays at the right time.
Yeah, and Ty Simpson and Alabama are almost in the same position as Auburn. If Ty Simpson is going to be good, they will be decent, and if not, and Florida State, they did end with a 2-10 season last year. Not saying they were good, but Alabama could be in a trap game this first game. I feel like it because Florida State's offense coordinator is now Gus Malzahn. And Gus Malzahn ended up with the winning record over Nick Saban, I believe. In case I'm right, that or a tied record. So I feel like Florida State is going to be better than last year, and that Alabama could be in a trap game.
I'll say this. If you look at Florida State, just for a split second, they are the closest thing to an NFL team with the way that they just constantly transfer portal, just cycling through players, going and getting seniors or like juniors or seniors who are going to go to the NFL. That's what Florida State's done with Mike Norvell. So they're the closest thing to a pro team. And so, although, yeah, they went 2-10 last year, you got to throw that out the window in today's era, especially with Florida State, because you don't know. They could be a really good football team. So and I mean, I think I do agree. Alabama, if they come with the wrong mindset, that's a trap game. There's no doubt that's a trap game. But you would think Alabama would take it seriously when Florida State's quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, who was Boston College's quarterback last year, when he keeps saying stuff like, oh, Nick Saban ain't there no more. You're in trouble now. You're coming to Florida State. You got trouble coming. Well, you would hope that with the Bama standard and how Alabama's been, you would hope that fuels a fire under them that they're going to want to go out there and beat them pretty bad.
Yeah, I see Alabama coming out. I'm expecting a double-digit season, and this year at 10-2, maybe even an 11-1. I feel like their only loss I'm almost certain for is the Georgia game at Georgia. But the other two games I have Alabama might losing is at South Carolina, which with Lenore Sellers at South Carolina, it can be South Carolina can come out with a win. And only because I'm an Auburn fan, I feel like Auburn can pull off the win against Alabama because it's going to be at Jordan Hare. And like Nick Saban said, that place is haunted.
I would agree with the Auburn game. I don't care. I mean, that's just my opinion. I throw the records out the window when it comes to the Iron Bowl, especially when it's played in Auburn. You just throw those records out the window because it don't matter. That game is going to it's either going to come down to the final play or you're going to have a blowout either side. That's just the way it is. And sadly, most of the time, Alabama blows Auburn out when it's in Tuscaloosa, but that's just, I mean, that Auburn hasn't won there in 15 years in Tuscaloosa since Cam Newton. So we're just looking at the facts here. But I got to say this. The Georgia one, I agree it could be difficult for Alabama. But however, I see Alabama this season. I could legitimately see them being at worst, I would agree the 10-2, but I think a realistic is 11-1. If this team plays to their full potential, I see 11-1 for Alabama.
Yeah, I see 11-1 in most cases. I do not see 12-0 at all. I do not see it at all because in this day and age, I do not see any teams going undefeated. I've not looked at Notre Dame's schedule, but I did see a video earlier today saying they could make it 12-0, but I've not seen their schedule, so I cannot justify that. But Alabama, they will make it in the playoff. I know it most likely, unless they somehow lose to Auburn at the end of the season. But uh, I, Georgia, if it was not at Georgia, I would say Alabama would probably win it. But with it being at Georgia, I see it hard for Alabama losing there, but I do winning there. But I feel like it will definitely be a easy. It will be a hard game and will be close. But Alabama's best case scenario for me is 11-1. Worst case 9-3, 8-4 if they lose to Florida State. But I feel like they will definitely get a double digit and probably make it into the playoffs. Like Auburn, I think their best case scenario is a 10-2 or 11-1, depending on if Auburn 11-1 if they beat Alabama.
Yeah, I'll say this to kind of wrap this up on Alabama. Um, I personally, I could see a world where perfect football gets them undefeated. But again, you got to look at the way the games play today. And really, more so than not, I think today the whole saying of any given Saturday really rings true. So, Alabama legitimately, I think if they do lose, if they are 11-1 at the end of the season, I mean, there's a lot of teams you could say Alabama could lose to. Most likely, I guess I would probably have to give it to the Georgia game because I mean they don't play Texas. Um, and I mean, just being honest, Texas is. I think the two best teams in the SEC coming into the season is going to be Texas and Alabama. I don't know. I mean, I just don't see Georgia being as good as them two. And Texas isn't on Alabama's schedule during the regular season, at least. So if Bama's going to lose a game, in my opinion, it probably will be the Georgia game. Although I just don't see it happening. But there could be a shocking loss Alabama has because of how they have been the last few years. But I'll say this. It's definitely going to be an interesting football season this year for Alabama and Auburn. And so I think I think from both what both of us have been saying, you can expect the Iron Bowl to be two of college football's best teams, hopefully. We can only hope for what we think, this is my opinion, the best rivalry in college football.
Yeah, I agree a whole bunch about the Iron Bowl and the best rivalry. There's just so many great moments in it. I know Ohio State, Michigan has all the hype, but in case you Auburn is in the same position Ohio State is in with Michigan. Michigan has beat Ohio State the past 4 years, I believe it is. But Alabama has been on the last 4 or 5. But I feel like Auburn has a chance of breaking that drought this year. And like I said, any given Saturday can be a game that goes for the worst. And Auburn, they, uh, and they just have to figure everything out. And last year, they finally got put together towards the end of the season. So maybe we can get them put together. But I feel like Auburn, if they win the Baylor game, and they could legitimately be in the college football playoff race as a lower seed, like a 11 or 12. Well, not 12 because that goes to a Power 5 or something like that. But I feel like Auburn could make it into the case if everything goes as dream scenario, but I say Auburn will definitely get a bowl game and should definitely get 8 wins. But anything, and well, if they get 7 wins, 7-5 at the end of the regular season, if they do not win the bowl game, I think Hugh Freeze might be gone. Even though he got a winning season, I feel like Hugh Freeze could be gone if he does not finish with 8 wins. Even though he has done great in the recruiting, not talking about next year, but these past 2 years, he has done great in recruiting, and I feel like Auburn could go 10-2, even 11-1, because I see Auburn having a legitimate chance, maybe, of beating Georgia this year. Georgia, you might not have looked at the schedule for Georgia, but they go to play out and they play Alabama. Then that very next week, they come and play at Auburn in Jordan Hare. So I just see Auburn having a chance of getting a surprising upset against Alabama, a surprising upset against Georgia, and could be a surprising upset against Alabama. So I think the video that I watched earlier today, it said week 7 can be a big week for a bunch of upsets because Alabama, I can't remember who they play, but it's Auburn and Georgia, and that week can go to a crazy upset week with any chances because that same week last year of Auburn playing Georgia, Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. So no telling what can happen next year. And Georgia, I feel like will be in the college football contenders, but I do not see them winning it all. But I do see Texas having a legitimate chance, actually, for maybe winning it all with Arch Manning. But I think Arch Manning has a lot of hype on him, but we'll see.
All right, final question before we end this video here tonight. Who? So here's what I want to ask: who do you think will be in the college football playoff, and who's winning it this year?
Oh man, that's going to be a hard choice for me, but I do see 3 or 4 SEC teams at most. But I see Texas winning the SEC championship game over Alabama. I feel like Alabama has a good chance of making the SEC championship game unless they lose to Auburn in the Iron Bowl. But Texas win the SEC championship. Ohio State or Michigan. I think Michigan has a chance of making the college football playoff this year if they can win the games that they're supposed to, unlike Auburn. But Ohio State or Michigan, Ohio State, Texas. Then we got um, my no. Those 2 teams I know. Alabama will make it most likely. Georgia has a chance of making it, and then Boise State might could make it again. Penn State is another one that I'm counting out that I've not mentioned, but Penn State could be a team that does good, but it's really hard to predict all 12 teams. I'm used to with the 4 teams, I could just blurt out 2 SEC teams and then a Big Ten and another team. But now with the 12 teams, it's hard to do that. But I do see a Oregon, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, or Texas being 4 of the front runners. But I see Texas and Penn State and maybe as a college football playoff championship game in the future.
Okay. And as far as my predictions, I've got another video I'm going to be doing, which I'll go through my predictions later. But I want to give Deric a chance to give a little bit of his predictions for the season. So, of course, we're gonna try to get you back on a little bit later in the season, maybe halfway or at the end of the season, sometime, So we can kind of get your thoughts on Auburn at that point, just to see what you're thinking. So, of course, um, any last thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, Auburn, best case scenario, 10 to 11 and 1, somewhere in there. Georgia will probably get double digits, and they will probably lose. In case they lose 2 games, it will be to Texas and Alabama. But the first week is going to be a crazy week with Auburn playing Baylor, Alabama, FSU, North Carolina, whoever they're playing for Labor Day, and then uh, Texas Ohio State is going to be a crazy game. Texas Ohio State was a good game last year and will be a good game this year. And Lee Corso's last headgear pick of his career. And I'm going to miss game day will not be the same without Lee Corso. And every year I look at Lee Corso whenever he's predicting Auburn, hoping he picks Auburn because he's right on most occasions. But I'm gonna miss Lee Corso on College Game Day, but it's going to be a crazy season, and I'm really hoping maybe to join you on maybe a game or two this season, and do a few broadcasts with you, and that's all.
Okay. Well, folks, that is pretty much all we got for tonight. We want to thank Deric for coming on and bringing this great video we just did. I mean, we've done nearly an hour of talking about mostly Auburn and Alabama. So it just shows that here in the South we do football different. And so, folks, it has been a great night, and it's time to wrap it up. So, folks, thanks for watching, and we will see you again later. Goodbye, everybody.